Hello, my name is Jackie, and I'm with Visit McHenry County, and we welcome you today to the Illinois Railway Museum. It's the largest railway museum in the country, and we are located 60 miles from Chicago. Today we will be touring some of what this museum has to offer, but very little will be scratched of the surface of all there is to offer here. We will be joined here momentarily by the Executive Director of the Illinois Railway Museum, Nick Callis, who will be taking us on a quick tour of the Illinois Railway Museum. Right now we're standing at the station, and Nick will be here shortly to tell us a little bit more about the history of this station, and we will start our tour. So while we wait for him to join us, please enjoy some of the views of the entranceway of the Illinois Railway Museum. We're live, and here is Nick Callis, the Executive Director of the Illinois Railway Museum, who will be taking us on the tour. I'm going to give you the microphone. I just let them know that we are at the Illinois Railway Museum, the largest railway museum in the country, and we're located 50 miles from Chicago. So if you could go into history and
Sure.
talking about the museum, I let them know we're going to just scratch the surface on the tour.
Right. Well, Jackie, most everybody, when they come here, they start out right here at the depot. This depot was built in 1851. It's from Marengo, Illinois, and it's the oldest active railroad depot west of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now, if you follow me, we'll just zip right through it. This depot had two waiting rooms in its original day, one for women, one for men. And that's how it was done back then. This is the window here for the station master, and the station master, this was where he worked. He sold tickets through there, and right here is how he communicated with the rest of the system. So here's an old telephone. This dates from the 1900s, but this dates from the 1800s. And this is a telegraph. This is a repeater. This is what they look like back in those days. And they made this clicking noise here when they operated. And it's how they communicated with everybody. And if you had messages that you wanted to send somewhere quickly, you came down to the station and you sent it via telegraph, because this is pre-telephone. So it's pretty interesting from the standpoint of, how the country developed in communications. The depot itself had wooden floor here. This part here was the baggage room, and right here was the ladies' waiting room. And this part was for the ladies themselves. And they'd buy tickets through these windows right here with the bars on them, and that's where you bought your tickets for your train trip. So this building was a pretty big building because Marengo was one of the larger towns out here when the railroad was coming through in 1851. So this was the original railroad line from Chicago. It's right out there. Ours is built on an interurban line. So now we'll take you through a little bit of the museum. And okay, so if you follow me, when the people come in to visit, they come from that direction. That building over there is a tower that came from east of Elgin, Illinois. That's the Spalding Tower. There's a place called Spalding on the east side of Elgin. and the tower men controlled movements of trains via the switches, the hand levers up there in that tower. And so we cut that building in half and moved it here years ago, and then we've restored it, and we use that building now as our dispatcher's office. And so people, when they park, they can see the building as they come walking into the depot area here. They take their train rides from these tracks. Those cars that are right over there were built in the 1920s. They're from the Rock Island, and the front one is from the Chicago Northwestern. And those are cars that people actually ride on. This first track here is where the streetcars and interurbans come in. Those are electric-powered cars. So let's move along here. And after people take their rides, they'll walk down here to the different buildings. Now, we have quite a few buildings here. We have 9 large storage barns. And the reason that we have those is to get the historic equipment inside so it'll be preserved. And that keeps the deterioration down. And then it gives the volunteers time to actually work on the equipment without Mother Nature, deteriorating it with the freeze-thaw cycles of winter and the rains, and the sun actually does a lot of damage too. So, as you're walking through here, this is Depot Street. We have a 1-mile trolley loop, we call it. And that's a loop that goes around the property. It has 4 stops on it. People get on and off the trolley at these different stops. They go through the buildings, go look at the stuff. They come back to the stop, get back on the trolley, go to the next one. So the trolleys, streetcars, they're all the same. The trolleys actually serve as moving people around the property, people movers. And that's what they used to do when they were in service in the cities, was people took the streetcars for work, for pleasure, for social things, business, and that's how people got around. Now, coming up on Barn 3, we have one of the oldest cars, railroad passenger cars. We do have some older than that, but railroad passenger cars in our collection. This is the Ely. It was built in 1889 by the Pullman Company on the south side of Chicago, and this was a business car. This car was originally built for Henry Plant, who owned the Plant System, which is a railroad system in Florida. And Henry Plant built many hotels to get people to come to Florida and that. Here's a picture of it at Pullman. And this is what it looked like originally when it was built at Pullman. There's the dining room, and we'll go inside it real quick here and show you how really ornate this car really was. So here's your back observation platform where they sat out and took in the airs, took in the scenery as it was going by. And this is the observation room. And in this room, this is where they just kind of got drinks served and just watched the passing countryside inside the car. Now, if you notice, some pretty fancy wood carving. This is what's called a carved wood car. After the Pullman strike of 1894, Pullman then went to what they call inlay in order to lay off those carpenters who struck him, but the carpenters were the ones who did all of this fancy woodwork there. And up above here, this is what's called the Pullman sunburst. Now, if you look, that's very fancy wood carving. It's the look of a sunburst there, and that same look is over the door of George M. Pullman's mausoleum in the Graceland Cemetery in Chicago. You'll notice that the same look is above the doorway there as we go out, and then notice all the fancy wood carving that's in this car. The car has 2 bedrooms in it, a dining room. You can take a look down the hall here. I think you'll be able to, if you look down that hall, you'll see that lady down there. She's in the dining room. And like I say, there's 2 bedrooms, 3 showers, and it's a very, very fancy car. Okay? So the people, when they're visiting, will come here, and we have these walkways, and they walk down the walkways, and the cars, some of the cars are open for interior inspection. Others aren't, but you're at the height of looking in the windows.
I have a question.
And so, oh, sure.
How much would it have cost for a round trip in the old days?
Well, it was actually pretty. It was expensive for its time. It's cheap in today's comparisons. Round trip, for example, a round trip to Milwaukee was about $3. And if you're going to the West Coast, you could go to the West Coast for about $60. And not on a fancy car like this, but back in those days, the cars were still wooden interiors and that type. So anywhere from, depending upon how far you're going, that's what the charges are going to be. Pretty reasonable. Another question? Well, let's keep moving. Anyway, so here there are many more cars in this barn, some that you can go in and see for interior inspection, and otherwise the lights are on in them and you can see what's inside on those that are not open. Now this look that we have here, if you stand right over in this area and you look here, what you're looking at is all the back porches of all of these private cars. You see four back porches. This is the look that you'll get at Derby Day in Louisville, Kentucky, when people come with all their private cars. The railroads haul all the private cars and the railroad's business cars, and they haul customers and all of that, and then all of them are alongside of each other on the storage tracks. And that's the look that you get. The Army-Navy game, the same look, that type of thing. This is how people actually traveled around. Now, we'll be walking along. Some of these carvings and stone pieces here, they're from railroad stations in Chicago that have been torn down. These were the lions out of LaSalle Street Station. They were up at the top at the parapet. That lady there in the bush actually was the keystone piece at the doorway coming out of the station. So she looked down on everybody that was coming out of LaSalle Street Station going over to the stock exchange and all of that. And she was the keystone in a big arch. So that's from a Chicago Railways Company car barn. So one of the stones that told you the year that the barn was built. You'll notice that we have a signal display here of all different kinds of signals that were used for controlling train movements on the railroads. And there's about 20 some odd signals here, and they all actually do operate. So there are different occasions that we hold here at night. We turn the lights on them. We put a computer laptop over there, and you can make each individual one of them operate. Here's the latest restoration in the electric car department, and this is Tim Peters. He's the fellow who's restoring this car. This is the Northwestern Elevated Railroad number 24, and this car was built in 1898. This is an L car. This car actually ran on the elevated structures in Chicago, and was built in 1898 by the Pullman Company there on the south side of Chicago. It has open gates. It's an open car, and the interior is all restored. So you can, when be about another year, say at the most, this car will actually be in service for visitors to ride. And that's the really neat thing about this museum and what we do is that we try to encourage people to come on out and ride in these historic vehicles. Unlike, say, people with restored automobiles who don't touch them and all that stuff, we're always, go ahead, sit down, we're taking you for a ride. So It's kind of interesting. Well, we're walking along here, and this is an outdoor display yard. This is yard 5. There are different pieces in here, railroad equipment, and this is a RDC car, rail diesel car. It's self-propelled, and this actually used to run from Crystal Lake to Chicago. This was a Chicago Northwestern car. They got 3 of them, and they actually got rid of them. It wasn't too successful an experiment. They traded them to another railroad for 40 hopper cars. This engine here was the switcher that was used at Dearborn Station for the Santa Fe. Here's a caboose, and then this big engine here is a turbine locomotive from the Union Pacific. They used these engines out west. This was the largest horsepower engine ever built. It was 8,500 horsepower. It's 3 units. It carried its own fuel tender. The turbine is in the second part, and then here's the controls. The engineers sat up there, and they used this out in the mountainous areas of the country. 1954 until about the early 60s, 65, 66, they got rid of them. It wasn't really successful because the turbine is like an airplane, you know, it's turning all the time, and so you have to, it's all power or no power is how it is. This is the refreshment stand, so we feature light refreshments here. There's a diner right there that came from Akron, Ohio, and like very typical of diners in the country, they had additions put onto them. And so the brick structure part is what we call the addition to the diner. The diner was built by the Jerry O. Mahoney Company in about 1922-23, and it was in Akron, Ohio. We moved it here, and then we built this addition, and then this is where the bathrooms are down property. We have 2 sets of public bathrooms here, and this building is air-conditioned, and light refreshments are served for people, and that way they don't have to leave the property. Here's another building, a storage barn. This one here has mostly interurban cars, and you can see the first one is wooden, and this was the Fort Wayne car, and then this one here is a South Shore car. Now, the South Shore Railroad is still running from downtown Chicago out to Michigan City and South Bend, and this car here they quit using about 20 years ago. It's a steel car, and that's the type that supplanted, or, you know, when they got away from wood cars, they went to these types of steel cars here. So, here we go. We're going to keep moving along. We're heading over toward the steam barn, but on the way we're going to show you a couple of really old pieces, and this is streetcars now. The first car, or the oldest car in our collection, was built in 1859, and it's a horse car. So, you know, streets in the cities were muddy. The wagons, you know, had a hard time getting through, the stagecoaches and that. So what they did was laid rails and then had these little vehicles here that were like stagecoaches, and they pulled them with a horse. So this is the 1859 horse car built by the Stevenson Company in New York City. This is a Chicago car. It ran in Chicago. The next one is a cable car trailer, and then the one behind it is the first electric series of cars that they used in Chicago. This guy right here is built in 1936. This is called a PCC car. PCC is short for President's Conference Committee, and they designed this car in 1936 to be ultra modern. So this was the modern look for 1936, and it's streamlined. If you think of cars, how they're boxy and all that, and this one's kind of rounded and sleek and all. Chicago had one of the largest streetcar systems in the country, and this was their attempts at modernization in 1936. Okay, so we're going to head over to the steam barn now, but on the way, there's another building right there. there's a big snowplow in there that we've just restored, as well as other interurban cars. Down this way here, it's an open area, but you can see the coal pile down there. And the steam locomotive that we run operates on coal, and that crane is what loads it into the tender. So that's the coal pile. We still use coal today. Here's the plow. When the snow got too deep on the railroads, they'd get out a plow like this, and go out and plow the roads. So you can imagine when you're driving your car, when you see the trucks that are plowing the roads and the plows in front, well, look at this guy. I mean, it's like, wow. This will move some snow, let me tell you. So it's pretty interesting. And then here's some interurban cars in here also from the Illinois Terminal System, which was a system in the state of Illinois that ran from Danville on the east all the way to Peoria on the west, and all the way down to Champaign and Decatur and Bloomington and Springfield, all the way down to St. Louis. So this building here, we have the largest collection of Illinois terminal interurbans. Now we're going to head over to the barns, the steam barns, and show you a couple of engines, and then we'll show you the engine that we actually operate here, pull trains for the public this summer, and that's the Frisco Decapod, the 1630. So as we're walking, you'll notice right up ahead of us here, there's a rise in the concrete, and there's a yellow post right over here. This is called a safety island, and this is in the streetcars. The streetcars ran down the center of the streets, so people had to get on in the center of the street. And so what protected them from cars hitting them? Well, this is called a safety island. This big block of concrete here, if a car is going to come this way, they're going to hit this block of concrete, and it's either going to go that direction or this direction. These lights here flash. They're flashing yellow lights of that, and it's got the board up there to try to wake the motorists up. So this is a safety island that we've recreated here, and safety islands are very common in Chicago. So here we go into Barn 9, and Barn 9 is the steam barn where we have most of the steam locomotives in the collection are stored here, and a couple of them right here in the front. This is the 3007. The 3007 was built for the Burlington Railroad. This was a 100-mile-an-hour locomotive. I believe it was built 1930 for passenger service. At the Depression, nobody knew that the Depression was going to last so long. The railroads wouldn't have bought it. But this is a 100-mile-an-hour locomotive that pulled passenger trains for the Burlington between Chicago and Denver, Colorado, as well as St. Paul. So this is the 3007. Now in this barn, you'll see many more steam engines. As you look down this aisle and that, you can see that it's got a lot more steam engines, and really big ones, bigger than this one here, than the 3007, what you're looking at. But we'll keep moving and go over to the 1630. Watch your step there. And here's our keystone locomotive, you might say, that is operating right now. We have three of them that are operational, that have been operated here, but we only have one operational right now while we're going through the rebuilding process for the federal government with their requirements on pressure boilers, pressure vessels. And this is a coal-burning steam locomotive. That's the cinders down there that you see. This is what it looks like. Here's the fire pan, and if you look in here, here's real cinders for you. So this is what coal looks like after it's been burnt. And back in the old days, people that burned coal in their houses, they'd throw this out in their driveways, and then it was like stones for their driveways. So this is the fire pan. Up here is the fire box, and this whole mechanism up here is the boiler. Now the principle behind a steam engine it's like a tea kettle. You heat up the water then turns to steam. The steam then is directed into this cylinder. This is the cylinder, the valves that goes back and forth, and then it's got ports in it, and it directs the steam down here. And then this is what makes this rod. There's a big piston down here, and then this rod is connected to that piston, and the rod goes back and forth, and then these rods on the wheels there is what turns the wheels. So this is a steam engine. History of this one, built in 1918 for the Imperial Russian Railways. So it was actually built for Russia. It was an order of 400 engines. Well, 312 got sent to Russia. 88 were on the docks when the Bolshevik Revolution occurred. The U.S. government cut off their credit, said, no, you can't pay for these because we don't recognize you, the Bolsheviks. And so the U.S. government then took these engines and assigned them to other railroads in the United States. So this one is referred to as a Russian decapod. Now, if you come around this side, I'll show you the builder's plate, and you'll see that if you look up there, the bottom one is in Russian, the Cyrillic. The top one is in English. And that's the builder's plate from the Baldwin Locomotive Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So this was originally built for Russia, but just never sent. And look at here, made in USA. Boy, how ironic nowadays when we look at our labels and they're made in China. But this big guy was made in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by American craftsmen. So that's the decapod. And now, the last few moments here, we'll take a spin, just a little cruise here into the steam shop. This is the building where we restore the locomotives back to either cosmetic or to operations. This locomotive is a Rock Island engine, and it's being restored cosmetically. And then the Shay, if you come down this way, I'll show you. You can look into the end of one and see all of the tubes on the Shay locomotive. And this one is going to be restored for operation out here at the museum. And people will be able to ride in coaches that are pulled by this locomotive. So Shay locomotive, pretty distinctive in that it's gear driven. They used to use these out in the forests, up in Michigan, out west, places where they had uneven tracks. And so they needed to be able to go on this uneven track, and this gear drive is how they did it. And this is big old universal joints right here for it. Here's the cylinders. And at this end, here is looking into the firebox, into the boiler of this locomotive. And so those tubes are called fire tubes, and they are surrounded by water. And so the fire from the coal that's burning, the heat is coming through these tubes and heating up the water that surrounds them. That water then is turned to steam, and then that steam is directed into the cylinders.
Great.
So
I think that is a much